Welcome into the 143. The stage is set for this year's Super Bowl. Chiefs, Niners, what an electric championship week.
We're coming at you at the conclusion of the AFC and NFC championship. Two phenomenal games. They did not disappoint.
Nope.
It was a great weekend of football, and we are excited to talk to you about it this week.
Yeah, we're bringing to you the highlights, what our takeaways from these games are, and let's get into it with your stat of the week. Brought to you by Andrews Logistics. The stat is, coming into last week's divisional game, the Niners were 0-30 when trailing in the fourth quarter by 5 or more points. Now they are 2-30 because last week against Green Bay, they came back and won the game when trailing in the fourth. This week against Detroit, they were trailing by 17 at halftime. I think they were trailing by 7 in the fourth quarter, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. And won both games. The Niners are going to the Super Bowl. Crazy game out there in Santa Clara that we'll talk to you about here in a second. But that's your stat of the week. Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy, it doesn't matter anymore. They can come from behind. They can be front runners. They're just winners right now.
Absolutely. Your player of the week, Travis Kelce, pulled in 11 balls for 116 yards and a touchdown to help the Chiefs get that win over Baltimore. And, similar to Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan showing up in big situations and winning, it's exactly what my boy Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes did. They showed up, played, regular Chiefs playoff football, and got the job done in Baltimore.
Much deserving player of the week, Nick. How much of his success would you attribute to his relationship with Taylor Swift?
Absolutely none. He's been a dog since day one. This is nothing new from Travis Kelce. This playoff form of Travis Kelce has been around since Travis Kelce's been around. So it's been all him all day long.
Well, honestly, I think Taylor Swift got more camera time than he did yesterday, is what it looks like in the game.
Hey, I kind of agree with you there.
Yeah, so anyways, I'm just joking around with Nick, but
I'm being dead serious.
We're here to talk about football.
I'm just being serious.
So, aside from Taylor Swift, which was obviously the most important thing that happened this weekend.
Yeah, obviously.
So the games were great, were phenomenal, and Nick, let's just start with the AFC Championship. That was the first game.
It was a nice defensive battle. You had two really strong defensive units going at it. The Ravens had one of the best defenses all year. Same thing with the Chiefs. Steve Spagnuolo had been spoken very highly of, and the Chiefs defense, that second half of the season, they had really turned it on and shut teams down, and that's what they did to the Ravens here. Obviously, the first half was a little bit more eventful just because that was when, both teams scored their touchdowns, but Ravens did a good job holding the Chiefs to 0 points in the second half. Yeah. It was just unfortunate because what they were doing to the Chiefs is what the Chiefs were doing to themselves. The Ravens offense really never got into, a nice rhythm.
Right.
Lamar wasn't throwing it super well. He wasn't able to run it super well either, and so the Ravens offense just was not able to do anything, and unfortunately that caused them to lose the game.
Yeah, the name of the game for the AFC Championship was just the Ravens really made a lot more mistakes than the Chiefs. The Chiefs really didn't make that many mistakes. They didn't really have – I don't know if they had any turnovers. I don't think they did. And then the Ravens fumbling the ball back at their own 30-yard line. Lamar having that fumble, that strip sack. And then Zay Flowers trying to lunge across the goal line with L'Jarius Sneed with that amazing punch out at the goal line. The Chiefs recover the ball.
Rolls in the back of the end zone. Yep.
That was the game, essentially, right there in the fourth quarter. Ravens trying to bring it to a 3-point game. And then also just the amount of penalties that the Ravens had. They had 5 15-yard unnecessary roughness / roughing the passer penalties. And that really hurt them, especially going into halftime and things like that. The NFL is not rigged, okay? The Chiefs didn't get all the calls yesterday. I thought that, and just in general, there were too many flags in the game, but
Yeah,
it didn't
I think
all go
that's
the
fair.
Chiefs' way.
Yeah, absolutely.
But in my biggest takeaway is this. Okay, Dak gets a lot of flack for not being successful in the playoffs. You want to know who else isn't successful in the playoffs? Lamar Jackson. So I think we need to talk about Lamar. I mean, what did you think of his performance yesterday?
I mean, what I was going to say is, you can lump Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen together in with Dak. That's not trying to say that, like, Dak is better than all these people necessarily, but it's like the way we talk about Dak and his playoff ability, that same amount of criticism and shade should be used on Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, because they do just about the exact same thing that Dak does every year, but obviously Dak's the only one of the three that gets bashed for it. And so I just think, we need to just even it out enough of the double standards, just judge everyone the same, right?
I agree. I think what happened yesterday is what happened in the Bills game, okay? When the quarterback's first instinct is to run the ball, you're in trouble. You're not going to the Super Bowl with that, okay? That's not how the game is played. As a quarterback, your job is not to run the ball. All right, when you're having about as many rush yards as you are passing yards, that's a problem, okay? That's cool in the regular season. It doesn't fly in the playoffs, because what the Chiefs did is they were like, you know what? If the Ravens are going to beat us, they're going to have to do it through the air. And that didn't happen because Lamar, yesterday, first of all, there were a couple throws that he completely missed. Some wide open one-on-ones down the field that he should have hit. Aguilar was one of them. Likely was another one. And then he tried to force the ball to Likely in the end zone into triple coverage and threw a pick in the fourth quarter. I mean, Lamar, if his first read's not there, he often wants to run it. He wanted to do that yesterday, but the Chiefs did a really good job of closing in on him to make him have to throw the ball from the pocket. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I think that was really their success. Like we said last week, Lamar's a run-first quarterback, and that's gonna come back to bite you. I mean, because the way you can defensively plan for that, and the Chiefs did a really good job. Spagnuolo did a really good job of getting them ready.
They just had too many mental errors. We pointed out all those things. The penalties, interception, the couple fumbles that they had. Obviously, not trying to take anything away from Kansas City, because obviously they won that game, but the Ravens kind of beat themselves up a little bit. They didn't make it easy on themselves.
Not defensively, though. I mean, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I guess defensively what they did was
defensively were the unnecessary roughness penalties. Like they had, I believe there was one drive where they had 3 15-yard penalties defensively, and those are momentum killers.
Well, you just can't mess with the head of a player. So quarterback, if you touch their head, like Clowney hit Mahomes' face and just laid him out.
He led head first.
And then, led head first another time in Mahomes. And then Patrick Queen hitting Kelsey with his helmet to helmet. You can't do that. Mm-hmm. And those are just boneheaded penalties that you could definitely avoid. But in the end, though, not Lamar, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelsey, the duo is on. He was our player of the week. Travis Kelsey had a phenomenal game. And that's Mahomes' guy. So I think the Mahomes-Kelsey connection, it's working really well right now. Rashee Rice is looking really good. Scantling's catching balls. Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney are listed as hurt. They're saying they're not hurt.
I've heard from multiple sources that they're not hurt. They're just not playing.
But they're benched, which is a good thing for the Chiefs because they have not been helpful.
They would not be doing any help.
I think the Chiefs they got hot as the playoffs started, and they've remained hot.
Obviously, the eyes are always on the Chiefs just because they have potential to bust this team out into a dynasty, depending on what they do in this upcoming Super Bowl. But there were a lot of question marks on what they were going to be able to do this season. So they lost a couple. They played a couple pretty bad games that they lost. Obviously, they dropped the season opener against Detroit at home. A lot of
people were hoping for a rematch in the Super Bowl.
They lost the Raiders there in the middle of the season. Drop passes were a huge deal. There were a couple weeks where
led the league.
Travis Kelsey was not looking like himself. But then, playoffs rolled around, and they just proved everyone wrong. They just said, hey, we're the Chiefs. We've been here before. We know what it's like. You know, we're just coasting through the regular season, and then once we get into January, February football, that's when we turn it on. That's when we show y'all who we are.
Obviously, got to shout out Andy Reid. He's the main reason this team is so successful. I mean, Patrick Mahomes gets most of the credit, but I mean, Andy Reid's the one calling up the plays for him, drawing up the schemes, and Andy Reid's just a phenomenal coach. So getting him back here, they're not satisfied with 6 straight championship appearances.
Because that's not a dynasty.
Unlike some teams.
You got to go out and get a ring to prove yourself
Yeah.
as a dynasty.
Just making it to the semis every year is not impressive.
Yeah, I would agree.
Like, there's some teams that think it is.
There are some. There
The
are
Astros,
some.
that's what we hear from their fans.
Okay.
We're going to address that in a few weeks.
In a few weeks, stay tuned and we'll address
Once
that.
the football season is
But-
over, we'll address it.
They understand that,
They're not satisfied.
the goal is the Lombardi Trophy. It's a Super
Yeah.
Bowl ring. So
And they're in 4 of the last 5 Super Bowls, so we'll see what they can do. But also, you do have to, no matter how much you don't want to see the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, you have to give a lot of credit to the Chiefs because of how successful they are. Also, it's just feeling a little bit like Brady and the Pats, where it doesn't matter how they do in the regular season. You just get them a seat in the dance.
Yep. Once January rolls around, they turn it on.
You just
and
gotta get in.
Show everyone that they're still about it. Still business.
So, congrats to them. And the Ravens fall short once again. I think the Ravens,
They still have some things to figure out. I do think they kind of need some more offensive weapons.
they didn't need
I
some
think
more
that's what it
receivers.
comes down
OBJ
to.
was not the answer. Odell Beckham was not
Bringing
the
him
answer.
in the offseason was not good. Zay Flowers was a great pick in the draft,
Yep,
but that's just too much pressure on a young guy.
Likely has been a great
First
tight
year in the
end.
league to kind of have him come in and expect to be the wide receiver one.
Got to get another
essentially.
wide receiver option for the other side.
Absolutely. Their running back room is very
Young, very good.
it's young and good, and they have a lot of guys, but the issue is keeping them healthy, right? Like, obviously, J.K. Dobbins got hurt at the very beginning of the season, and they kind of battled injury throughout that. Mark Andrews, he's become somewhat injury-prone these last couple
Yeah.
seasons. He missed some time
His
this year.
backup's really good, though.
Yeah.
Likely.
Isaiah Likely's good, but
In the end, you got to teach Lamar that running is your 5th option as a quarterback. You need to have 4 passing
Yep.
options before you decide. It's got to be, I either run this ball or throw it out of bounds. One of those things.
exactly.
Throwing's
Yes,
got
I
to
agree.
be the instinct for a quarterback. But congrats to the Chiefs going to the Super Bowl. Let's turn our attention to the later game, the NFC Championship game. That was a completely different game, a lot of offense, and going into halftime, it was looking like the Lions were going to make it to the Super Bowl.
I was going to say it did not look great at first. Halftime the score was 24-7 in favor of the Lions, and so I think like a lot of people, what we were talking about is like, man, this is crazy. The Lions are going to go to the Super Bowl. But then, the 49ers come out and they just punch them right in the mouth in the second half. They start out with the ball, they go down. They get some points, and then some costly turnovers from the Detroit Lions ultimately leads to their downfall.
Yeah, in the first half, the Lions had 116 rushing yards. That's the most on a Kyle Shanahan team in the first half. They were running the ball all over. They had 3 different rushing touchdowns from 3 different guys. They were just having their way with the 49ers defense. But yes, come halftime, the Niners offense turned it on. The defense got better. And then the Lions, there were some very big...
Their offense just imploded on themselves in that second half.
And it wasn't Jared Goff's fault. I think Goff played a great game. I think Goff put his guys in situations to win the game. But we'll start with the Jahmyr Gibbs fumble. He got 1 carry in the second half, and it was a fumble at the line of scrimmage. Turned the ball over on the Niners or on the Lions 20-yard line, putting them
What
well in.
stunk for them is that eliminated every single shred of momentum that the Lions had, if they even had any, because at that point it was 24-17. The 49ers had just scored a touchdown to put them within 7. And then the first play of this next drive, Jahmyr Gibbs fumbles it and puts it in prime territory for the 49ers. A couple plays later, they score a touchdown, and all of a sudden, what was a 24-7 affair is it's now it's a 24-24. It's a tied game, and then the Lions, they just could not get their offense going.
Yeah, a lot of drop passes for the Lions in the second half. On a 4th and 3, Josh Reynolds, ball hits his hand. They went for it. They didn't kick the field goal. Now, that was one of the times that Dan Campbell all season, he said, I'm going to go for it. That's all they did. It was questioned. It had been working for him, but it came back to bite them because they didn't go for the field goal. Was that to tie the game at that point? Or no, that was to go up 7 instead of 4.
Yes.
I think that was to go up 7. Didn't kick the field goal. And then turn the ball over. Niners go score on an Ayuk touchdown. Then come back, and they needed another field goal, but they went for it again. Didn't get it.
I mean, the first one, you can't really pin that on Dan Campbell or Jared Goff. They drew up a good play.
Good play, ball right off his hands.
Got Josh Reynolds open, and it bounces right off of his hands, and so that's just, that's unfortunate. Earlier in that drive, they run a little flea flicker option, or a flea flicker play. Jared Goff drops back, unloads a 50-yard
dime,
50-yard dime, just an absolute bomb to Jameson Williams, who it just drops. Jared Goff literally drops it right into the bucket, and it goes right in between his hands, and then they end up turning the ball over later. They go 3 and out. This was right after they fumbled it. They got the ball after the Niners scored a touchdown to tie the game, and they go 3 and out. It was a 3rd and 10 or 3rd and 8 or something like that, I believe. And Josh Reynolds, once again, he finds himself wide open, 15 yards down the field, nobody within 10 yards of him. He would have caught it, ran for at least 20, and he drops the ball. And so the Lions end up punting the ball away, and it was just this endless downward spiral of the Lions just imploding on themselves, unfortunately.
Yeah, just so many errors. But I will say, the second time they went for it on 4th down, with 7 minutes left, down 3 on the 20-yard line or 30-yard line, you kicked the field goal.
I agree. That was where I would disagree with what they did. Obviously,
first time you try it, doesn't work out.
That's been Dan Campbell's MO since he's been here with the Lions is, Joseph already said, he made it clear that they're going for it on
That's what they do.
4th down. But I think in that scenario, you just had too many mistakes. You had already turned it over on downs once. You had already fumbled it and given the ball back to the 49ers. You had already went 3 and out and punted it. It's like you're down here. Just take the points and tie the game.
Yeah, in a playoff game on the road with the momentum clearly not in your favor at that point, you got to tie the game and try to get your defense to get a stop. That ended up costing the Lions the game, but you got to give tons of credit. The game was won by the 49ers.
Absolutely.
I don't think the game was lost by the Lions. I think the 49ers took control in the second half. Brock Purdy came out, completely different quarterback from the first half. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, he got George Kittle. Christian McCaffrey had, I want to say, like 70 rushing yards in the second half, and their offense just, changed their plan and they got on it.
Speaking of, I think with that, it should be noted / pointed out that if you think Brock Purdy's a game manager, I think you're just straight up wrong. Because that's what it comes down. In the NFC Championship game, they were down 24-7 at half, right? If you're a game manager, you're not leading your team to a comeback in the second half when you're down 24-7.
He had 48 rushing yards in the second half. He was not a manager.
He was not great the first half, but The entire 49ers in general just were not
That's a
really sound in the first half, but then they came up second half, showed up and showed out. He threw for 267 yards. Like Joseph said, he ran for 48. That's something that we've not seen from Brock Purdy, is him use his legs, but that was just elite playmaking ability.
That's a game
extending
changer.
Plays. Yeah,
Not a game manager. I mean,
exactly.
He's the reason they won that game. It was not their defense. I mean, it was him. The reason that they won that game. And I don't think if they win the Super Bowl, maybe he'll get his due, but still people are not respecting him enough. Just because he's not flashy like Lamar, or he doesn't fling the ball, 75 yards every play like Josh Allen or something. Like, Brock Purdy is a phenomenal quarterback, and what made Brady so great was his decision making. And I mean, Brock Purdy's kind of doing that, where he really excels in making the right decision, making the right throw.
I mean, I would agree. I mean, what it came down to is, in the most tense moments, like whenever the games matter the most, when the plays matter the most, he's out there performing, being productive for his team.
Same thing with Green Bay.
We're seeing him make plays and lead comebacks and do what needed to be done. I mean, I don't think it's fair to say that he's a game manager. And multiple people on the 49ers roster, George Kittle in particular, has kind of come out and refuted that. He just said, I mean, obviously they're a complete team, right? They have Christian McCaffrey, they got Debo, they got Ayuk, they got George Kittle. So yeah, they
got talent,
plenty of weapons, but you still need a guy that can mesh all of those weapons together.
They've
and
had
get
those
it to
weapons
work
for a while. This is not a new team.
I mean, what I was gonna say, I mean,
quarterback.
Jimmy G had these same weapons, and
Didn't do much.
he went to a Super Bowl with them, but they lost, and so now they're back with another quarterback, and hopefully things will be different for them. But I think Brock Purdy has officially, made himself known as not a game manager, but a game changer.
I mean, the Lions, what they've been known for is front running this entire season, where you don't want to let them get a lead, because once they get a lead, they can kind of seal the game. And this time, because of Brock Purdy's playing and those turnovers, I mean, they took the Lions out of the game, something that teams have been trying to do all season. But once the Lions get up on you, you can't really beat them this season. But the Niners did, and Brock Purdy really, that whole comeback was orchestrated by him. And so the Super Bowl is shaping up to be pretty competitive. Both teams deserve to be there. Both teams showcased in the championship games that they are, championship worthy, and I don't have any problems with either team that won. I think, I'm excited that Brock Purdy's in it. And, Patrick Mahomes, look, everyone counted the Chiefs out. The Chiefs proved everyone wrong against the Ravens. People have just been waiting on them to lose, and they haven't done it yet. So when push comes to shove, both of these teams have shown that they can get it done in the fourth quarter, which in the playoffs, the fourth quarter, is the most important. And that's when, that's kind of when you see who the champions really are. I think both of these teams really showed up in their fourth quarters they played.
It's unfortunate for the Lions, the way it started. But still, you got to take this year, and I would say
lots of credit to the Lions.
It's a success.
They've turned their franchise around.
It was successful. This season was successful. You lost by 3 in the NFC
used to be the laughing
game.
stock of the league, not but a year ago.
Yeah, and then you flip right around, go 12-5, win the division, and then, like I just said, you go to the NFC Championship and you lose by 3 to a team that could.
To a team that at the beginning of the season was picked to one of.
They could very well go on and win the Super Bowl, and also they've been.
The 1 seed.
They had been, they're the 1 seed, and they had been smoking teams all regular season long, and so I give you props.
The Lions
for
will
what
be back
you've done.
next season. They'll be
I
back.
like Dan Campbell.
Yeah.
I love what he's done for that. He's such a likable guy. What he's done for that organization, he's really turned things around. But it's just unfortunate that it's over. But congrats to y'all for making it this far. Hopefully the Cowboys will be there one day.
Oh, maybe.
Once we make some changes. Well, once we make some changes,
If we
we'll
make
be there.
changes.
But I was about to say the unfortunate thing is changes do not look like they're being made.
No, but for the Lions, it's a successful season. For the Ravens, it is nothing but disappointment. The Ravens this season were set to be. This was supposed to be their year, and they couldn't get the job done. With the Ravens, it's looking like they're going to really need to work with Lamar this offseason.
I was going to say they have some severe self-evaluating that they're going to have to do.
They really hurt themselves in that game, and you just really have to work with your quarterback to make sure he knows
Because what I was going to say
to do in these situations.
is, I mean, Lamar's supposed to be the MVP this year, right? And you didn't see it that game from him, and so you got to look in the mirror, got to figure out what you need to fix, because there are definitely issues that you need to fix.
Overall, though, great NFC and AFC championship. Super Bowl's looking to be really good. Next week, before the Super Bowl, we will be bringing you our
Give
Super
you a little
Bowl
preview.
and we'll look at the Super Bowl.
It is also unfortunate. We got one game left
It's almost
in
over.
the NFL season,
Gotta enjoy it.
so it's just you
It goes
got to
by
do
too
that.
fast.
Sooner or later, this season is going to be over, and then unfortunately, we're going to have to move on.
And we got to find other stuff to talk about.
Yep. But nevertheless, here's we like to end our shows on Under Review. I brought to you a quote from J.J. Watt. He said, "If you do the bare minimum, expect bare minimum results. You want to be great, work to be great."
That's a legend right
That
there.
is the truth.
Thank y'all for tuning in this week. We will see you next week with our Super Bowl preview. This is Under Review, signing out.